Hello, I'm Alex Nitzberg, and welcome to the Alex Nitzberg Show. Today, I'm excited to announce that I have some guests. It's a band called West Coast Revival, specifically brothers Jonathan and Ryan Baird, who are actually located in Arizona. I'm coming to you from Florida. So, anyway, I'm excited to have them on as the first guest on this new video format of the Alex Nitzberg Show. So, let me just, before I actually let them talk and introduce themselves, let me just tell you about them a little bit. West Coast Revival is a really good band. They have a couple of albums, a bunch of singles. They also have an EP. I might be missing stuff, but basically they have a lot of good music. They have various. They kind of go into various genres. They have some rock music, kind of heavier rock, some light rock. They have worship type music. They have I would say acoustic, folksy sounding music, and obviously I'll let them talk about it more. But I'm just giving you an idea. What'd you say?
All of the above.
All of the above, yeah. And I'll let obviously you guys will be better describing it than me, but as someone who's listened to a bunch of it, I just anyway. I think basically the point is you should go listen to them if you've never heard of them. Definitely go check them out on Spotify. Follow them on Spotify. I'm following them on Spotify, and where I guess you can buy the music. And as someone who actually has music available for sale and on streaming, I can tell you you make more money if you buy it. So definitely, if you like them, be better off probably if you buy it. But subscribe to them on Spotify too. But anyway, guys, go ahead and I'll let you guys talk about yourselves. So can you both just first of all introduce yourselves and then say your names and everything, and how your band got started and whatever you want to say? Just introduce yourselves to everybody.
Sure. First of all, thanks for having us on your show, Alex. Yeah. We appreciate the opportunity to be here. Yeah, man, goodness, we've had our band since we were teenagers, so 20 plus years. We're very involved in our local churches. I think that's one of our core values is we love the church. We love serving the church. We love Jesus and making his name great. And so when we're writing any music, it's often in the context of serving our church and starting off as worship leaders, and we're actually worship team members and then worship leaders and then youth bands and stuff like that. It grew from there into just writing music, creating new music, starting to jam with friends. Our friend Zach Boomsma, who's also here in Arizona, was our drummer for many years. Sean Curran, our bass player. Later, our brother Aaron joined as an electric guitarist. Our sister Megan, who sings. So it grew very naturally, I would say, just as a fun collaborative way to create music and write songs, and having a lot of fun. And then it's just been really cool to see that grow and go beyond us a bit through, you mentioned, Alex and I were talking earlier, No Greater Love, the movie our songs were in, and other places we've had the opportunity to get the music out there. So it's been a fun journey. Yeah.
I'm Jonathan, and this is Ryan.
Should have started with that.
And yeah, that's kind of our story. So glad to be able to be a guest on your podcast, man.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you guys coming on. I used to do an audio podcast years ago, and I did interviews on that. And then I started doing these video things recently. I haven't actually had anybody on as an interview yet, so you guys are the first people. So I appreciate you coming on.
We're glad to be the first.
Yeah. So, all right. So we're gonna talk a little bit about music and politics on here. I mean, all I've pretty much done on the show so far since I started doing the videos is politics. So we'll get into that a little bit also. But you guys, well, let me ask you about music first. Do you have anything new coming out in the future that you would like to disclose?
That's a great question.
We do not have any releases scheduled, but we got a ton of sticks in the fire, songwriting wise. We're always writing. And I think what we're really kind of looking towards right now is creating a community of songwriters that kind of have our same vision for songwriting, serving the church, and the biblically rich and stuff that rocks. So I think that's kind of what we're moving towards, is just creating that songwriting community. So
yeah, there's several people here in Arizona that are extremely talented songwriters and musicians. I mentioned Zach Boomsma, who is our drummer. He's part of the church that we're also a part of. He's a very talented producer, songwriter, musician. And then we've got others that have just kind of naturally started to collaborate with us. So it's kind of been exciting to see like this little group forming where we're all just kind of pursuing the same vision of just excellent biblical rich songs, but with just absolutely no holds bar on the music, wanting to create very creative, very interesting music that people like and enjoy to listen to, and that is drawing their hearts and their minds and their eyes to Jesus. In fact, we one of the kind of banners under which we're gonna start to put all of this music is fixed on Jesus music as kind of like our overarching theme for everything that we start to produce. So I think, you know, while we don't have anything set in stone, we are kind of eyeballing probably a live something, maybe an EP or possibly a full album sometime next summer. And so we've started to put the pieces together for that, starting to get kind of the money together and the people together and the technicals together, because we want to make it video as well. So not quite set in stone, but we've got that plan, and we've just got some killer songs that we're excited about that we've been writing and refining. You know, we did this recently. We were working on this re-rendition, kind of a hymn version of the song "Oh Danny Boy" that's really got us excited, and a few others. So definitely some good material coming out and that we're pretty stoked about.
I don't know if I remember it might have been something about a rock, but there was it sounded like a hymn that you guys put on Facebook like maybe 6 months ago that I actually left a comment on, and I said like, oh, are you going to record this? Because I really like the sound of it.
Yeah, actually,
I don't even know
it was solid rock. So what we did was
okay, yeah, I like that. You guys should record that.
Actually, that's one of the ones that we want to do, and we may actually do that one as like a special release because we did a recent youth retreat for the Gospel Coalition. Did like a big youth retreat, and we had the privilege of playing and doing worship and doing a concert there for them. And so we introduced that song, which was kind of fun. It was like this rapish kind of lyrics of solid rock verses, you know, my hope is built on nothing less. And then we go into it's actually an old Delirious chorus that they had from many years ago on the solid rock. And it just had this great combination that when we did it live with all the kids it was electric, man. Everybody loved it. So we are excited about that one. Maybe even as a single before that live one, we may start to put that one together. So some fun
yeah,
things.
Anyway, so yeah, that's good. Yeah. And people, I mean, I should mention, I already mentioned, but you guys have a lot of music already out there. Like, I mean, years worth of music. So, I mean, like I said, 2 full-length albums plus all the other stuff. So it's not like there's a shortage of people who have never heard of you and they want to go check you out. There's lots of stuff they can listen to now. But
lots to check out. Yeah, like you mentioned, Spotify, West Coast Revival on Spotify. Go check it out. We actually, this year, we were able to get our very first EP, our very first 6-track EP put up on Spotify, which before wasn't really available anywhere. So if you haven't checked us out in a while, there's probably a bunch of content on Spotify that you haven't seen. We also released several new singles over the last couple of years. The Pearl of Great Price, which is a really rockin' tune. Our song that's done probably really, really well recently is The Sparrow, which is a really great, just kind of more of a folksy song, just focusing on God's provision and care for us. And then most recently, we were able to work with Sal Oliveri, who's a friend that actually we worked together on the Sovereign Grace Psalms project many years ago. And he produced our song Before My Knees Could Reach the Ground, which is our most recent release. So anyway, yeah, check us out. If you haven't, for anybody listening, check us out. You'll probably find lots of new stuff there to take a look at.
Yeah, and pretty much almost any genre you could possibly be into, you'll find something that will be to your liking. Because, like I said, like even one of my favorite songs. I mean, I like a number of songs, but one of the songs I really like, and it's one of the 2 that I have on a CD in the car right now, is I'm trying to think of the name of it. Refugee is the name of it, because it sounds like it's reggae. It sounds like reggae music. That's a good one too.
That's actually a fun story, because I wrote that song mostly. Jonathan helped me with a lot of lyrics too, but the band, when I introduced that song, they just hated me because it was like a genre that was a big time like push into the discomfort zone. And even the little lead, that was a lead that I wrote on piano. And I was like, I want you to do this on guitar. And they're like, it's not a normal guitar lick. This is driving me crazy. So that's a funny song because the guys actually hated doing that song. But it's often a fan favorite. Like a lot of people are like, I love Refugee. The Refugee is such an interesting song. So can you
Yeah, and like I told you before, Simple Fix, which is on the same album, I really like that song too. And but yeah, Refugee. I mean, it's like I think your only reggae song that I'm aware of, but it's really good. So.
It is our only.
It is our only. Yeah, I think I played all of my cards to get them to do that one reggae song that probably won't happen.
So who? Wait, let's give the guitarist a shout out. Who was the guitarist that ended up playing that part?
That was Jonathan
and my older brother.
That was
Aaron.
you. Oh, that was you, Jonathan.
Yeah,
Jonathan did it, and then my older brother Aaron, who he
did a harmony with it. It was kind of like two guitars doing the same thing.
Well, it turned out really nice.
Yeah, it was fun.
And I guess you could say almost sort of reminiscent of like maybe steel drums or something. Is that what you were going for?
Yeah, well, that was what I had in my head, and then at the time, Modest Yahoo was like really popular, and I loved his some of his stuff, so I kind of had that in my head too as I was writing it, and so it was all kind of just meshed together for that one.
Yeah.
All right, so let me jump into the politics stuff a little bit here. First of all, just go ahead and say like what are your political leanings? It seems like it's obviously you're on the show, so maybe people can guess, but you can go ahead and just tell us like what are your political views? What are some issues that you consider important issues that you care about?
You want to go first? I can go first.
Definitely conservative, Republican, and definitely excited and felt like Trump really resonated with me personally. I kind of, bit my tongue and voted for him the first time and was amazed at how he kind of backed up what he said he was going to do. So he kind of won me over. And I know that's pretty, all you have to do is say Trump and everything gets really contentious. But, if I'm being honest, that's where I stand right now. So.
Yeah, I think growing up in California, you're just, we grew up in Pasadena, which is just outside of LA. So, you're just in this sea of dark blue, and then going through COVID, in a super dark blue area, the contrasts were just becoming really, really stark of the policies and the philosophy and the underlying kind of worldview that we were surrounded in just started to become very clear that it was important to be educated and aware of what's happening politically around you. I think, I think the culture I grew up in was definitely one where Christianity and politics were not supposed to be super entwined. Like you didn't want your church to be super political. And I still believe that to some extent. But as I kind of grew older and I saw what was happening and the effect that politics had on my religious beliefs and my surroundings, I kind of started to form a little bit more of a balanced view of like, what? It is important to be politically active. It is important to understand, about your candidates and what's happening around you. And that definitely drove me towards some core principles of like freedom of speech. People should not be persecuted for their ideas. You start to see things online where people's basic viewpoints are starting to get not just criticized but punished, and it just more and more, especially like I said, being in that dark blue area, you're like, well, this doesn't seem like what it used to be. Like it used to be, I felt like that I could disagree with like a dark blue guy at my work and we could kind of part friends, and it just seemed increasingly impossible to do things like that. And so that's definitely, from a political standpoint, made me, like Jonathan was saying, I actually found myself liking a guy like Trump, which was crazy to me to think when he first came on the scene that I would. But it was because here was a guy that actually seemed to get it, that the media and the overall kind of culture was purposely making a person like me feel like I was the problem, or an idiot or a fool for the basic things that I believed. And so anyway, yeah, it's been a real fascinating last, I'd say, 3 or 4 years as the kind of political world just seems to be getting, I mean, think about it, Alex. I mean, over the last 4 or 5 years, the issues of transgenderism that we're seeing today, it just feels like that has exploded from where it was 5 years before. And all of a sudden it's like, to a degree and a level.
All right, you were talking about, I think you were saying something about the transgender movement. So start from there, because that's what you were kind of saying, and that's something that I write about a lot. So
yeah, I was just basically pointing out and kind of curious even of your opinion, if you agree, that it just seems like in the last 5 years in particular, the level of extremeness has just, it seems like it's just skyrocketed, whereas ideas that, 5 years ago, the idea that, anybody in the country would be okay with, having surgeries to alter your body to become a different gender. Like 5 years ago, I think that would have been considered pretty much insane. And now we have like significant amounts of people in media, what I feel like, pretending that it is normal. And so, all of that just kind of has led us, I think, to be a little bit more political than we probably have been in the past.
yeah, the LGBT transgender thing is something that, like, I talk about on this show and write about a lot and stuff. And it's like, it's literally insane, because like there's just, it's total nonsense, and like everyone should know that it's total nonsense. And I guess you could say, almost as Christians, maybe the reason a lot of people talk about it is because it's like, it's just an assault on basic truth, like literally like Genesis. Like it's like, it's just, and it's so obviously preposterous. For instance, there's like a lot of examples, but Leah Thomas, the transgender swimmer that was like annihilating the competition at the university, was
Right.
well, I say he, I'm probably gonna get censored for saying that, was a University of Pennsylvania swimmer who's just pretending to be a woman, competing against women, beating them at a bunch of competitions. And like, so the University of Pennsylvania puts out some press release and says something like, Quaker swimmer Leah Thomas becomes the first female something or other, like the NCAA champion or something. And it's like, really? And like Rachel Levine, who's a government official, who's like, I think at HHS or something like that, they said something about first female something, like 4-star admiral and something, whatever. I mean, I don't know the exact terminology, but they keep saying first woman, first female. I wrote a story this week about somebody, apparently this individual who's involved in purchasing the Miss Universe pageant is being billed as like the first woman owner of the Miss Universe pageant. But guess what? That person's transgender and is actually a man. It's like, it just, but yeah, it goes on, and there's just endless stories. There's the drag queen story hour stuff with kids, and like, it's crazy. It's totally crazy.
And it just seems like a bombardment. Like it seems coming from everywhere. Yeah, and it's almost,
it seems like an assault on truth in
like
general,
you're saying.
Not just the transgender, but in everything. It's just getting you to say stuff that is not true. It's like a social experiment. Like, how can we get them to say basic things that they know that aren't true? So, and it seems to be happening on social media a lot, and in politics. And so that's kind of been my attitude. It's not like I don't really go around with a MAGA hat or anything like that. And my attitude is just like, I read my Bible, and I know in a very general way what's true, in the big picture way. And so I feel like, not necessarily party affiliated, I just feel like I agree with the Republican platform more than I do with the Democrat. And
for now,
I don't have any faith. So if we just win huge for the next 10 years and we just dominate, then the Republican Party is going to become corrupt if they dominate for that amount of time. And we're going to have to stand up and say, get rid of these people, and it's not a question. I mean, that's just how things go. So it's like, for now, I think we need to be hoping that the Republicans have a pretty big win, but it's a short term, right?
It's not a permanent solution.
I want more balance, and I don't want the Democrat Party to be gone. I want them to be pro-America, so that we have a two-party system. I don't want one-party rule, even if it was everything I agreed with, because it would change if we had one-party rule and they were like, we're going to make Jesus Christ king and everything according to the Bible. Then, I mean, I wouldn't want one-party rule, because eventually it would steer off and it would go bad. So we just need two-party rule. The Republicans, in my opinion, it's just a uniparty with the Democrats. The Mitch McConnells and the guys like that are just the worst. Just the worst, and probably get me angry more than the Democrats. So,
in some ways,
yeah. So the Democrats, it's like you're expecting it, but the Republicans, just their lazy, do nothing, stances are just maddening. And I think that's where Trump stepped in and said, let's get stuff done. And we're like, yeah. And I didn't agree with him and everything. I remember when Trump was like, hey, we're going to fast track, this, during the COVID thing, we're going to fast track the what do you call it? The vaccine. And I encourage everybody to get the vaccine. And I was like, nope. And that's when Trump said it. I was like, there's no way I'm getting that. You're going to fast track a vaccine and you want everybody to get it. I'm like, I don't trust that. No way. So I'll let it play out and see if people are dropping dead and then the vaccine's saving them, then I'll think about it. But as of right now, no, I don't care who says it. Trump could say it doesn't matter. I'm not taking the experimental vaccine. And it played out that way. But it's just like Trump would be done in a second if he started lying to us. In a second. And I just don't think he would last at all. That's my belief. So I would ditch him in a heartbeat if he lied to me. So, and I think that's how most conservatives think. I could be wrong about that, but that's kind of my take on it. So
yeah, on the vaccine thing, I would say at this point he should definitely stop taking credit for it. I think it would be a good time. It would have been a good time years ago to stop taking credit for it, but he should definitely. It's funny, he keeps trying to take credit. I actually haven't been paying that much attention to him lately, so I'm assuming he still is, but he was for a long time. It's like, dude, stop taking credit for that.
I haven't heard him mention it in a while, but every once in a while,
maybe he's going to back off.
I hope so, but I don't know if he will, but I completely agree. It's like, yeah, just let that one stay in the past. Like, you can stop talking about it.
Yeah, and I think a lot of his supporters are probably not in love with it, or either anti-vaccine or just not a fan of the vaccine, whatever. I just don't think it's helping him politically to be touting the vaccine and stuff. So, but anyway, yeah. So, all right. So, Jonathan, Ryan and I were talking about this before we started recording and stuff, but I saw that you had reposted a Kari Lake ad on your Facebook. So I was telling Ryan that I just, he had already seen it, but there was a story the other day where Kari Lake was basically dunking on Liz Cheney, because Liz Cheney's got this PAC that's running this. It's supposed to be an attack ad, an anti Kari Lake ad. Basically, I think they clipped up some comments where she had basically said, basically, if I was voting in Arizona, I would vote for Democrats. And she was specifically attacking Kari Lake, and she was attacking Mark Fincham, who I believe is running for Attorney General. Is that correct? in the state. You guys, anyway, I think that's what he's. Anyway, he's running for something. Maybe a secretary. He's running for something. Mark Fincham is, and so Kari Lake like puts out this letter and is basically like, "Thank you for the in-kind contribution to my campaign, Liz Cheney."
Yeah.
I guess she figured if Liz Cheney is attacking me, then and she
so
she put out. I think she, yeah. So anyway, so you guys, I take it are Kari Lake fans then?
Absolutely. I mean, she's an absolute rock star.
She's a killer. Love it.
The communicator, the communication aspect of what she's able to accomplish, taking on the media and just kind of the Trumpish. It's amazing to see what the influence Trump has brought to the table for the Republican Party. We just want to see some fighters, and she's fighting, and she's better at it, and she's dominating communication wise. So she's an absolute rock star. There's always the aspect of, and when she wins, she's got to do what she says she's going to do. There's going to be a lot of opposition. We understand that, but she's got to get stuff done, and I think she will. There's been there's not many leaders like Trump, I think, and I think that's been the big difference, like pre-Trump and post-Trump. I think there's some stuff that I've had to step back and be like, man, I was wrong. I was wrong about the Iraq War, Bush, George W. Bush. I just see him in a completely different light nowadays, post-Trump. And to connect that to Kari, it's just like I'm seeing those leadership qualities. It's like I'm perceiving those better, because leadership is a gift, that you don't just throw away. So people are like, well, Trump's done, and it's like I don't think so. I think I haven't really seen anybody else that can take the hits that he took and still get stuff done.
Keep trucking.
So unless someone else, shows it, I don't see why we should move on. And it's not because I just like him personally. It's because I see the gifts, and I'm like, I think we need him in there, and that's what makes me excited about Kari Lake is, it seems like the way she's leading her campaign. I loved it when she was like, they asked about the Ron DeSantis sending the refugees to Martha's Vineyard, and she's like, not a fan, didn't like it. I don't like, diminishing real human people that are suffering. And she's like, I thought it accomplished a lot. I thought it was helpful to see how they responded, the people in Martha's Vineyard, but not something I would do. And I was like, I appreciate that. That's good leadership. When you can say, I'm a huge fan of Ron DeSantis, but at the same time wasn't a fan of that thing.
Shows she has a real opinion.
She's not just,
even if you don't agree with it.
Yeah. So little stuff like that I've seen, besides the fact that she's just winning. So.
Yeah, and I think for me, I'm starting to put my finger on what it is I like about certain politicians. Like I think of a guy like Mike Pence, who at one point I really liked and thought he was quality and good. And to some degree, I still think so a little bit, but he's kind of gone downhill for me somewhat. And I think a lot of what I'm starting to realize I'm drawn to is people who don't accept the premise of the media. And unfortunately, a lot of it comes down today of, do you recognize what the media really is today, or do you not? Do you play their game, or do you recognize that they're playing a game on you and address it? And what I love about Kari Lake and Ron DeSantis is when they get these incredibly dishonest questions from the media, or they get proposed something that it is completely a false narrative. Like, so what do you think about the Don't Say Gay bill that hates all gay people? And it's like, I mean, that's not a literal question, but it's like, it's almost
Right,
that,
it is.
it's just almost that extreme in one sense, because what the heck are you talking about? That's not even a real thing. You're just making crap up in your, like, you're putting up this fake straw man and beating it down and clapping for yourself. Like, that's not a real thing. Here's the truth. And that's what I personally like about Kari Lake, is you hear these interactions with her in the media, or someone like Liz Cheney, and it's just like, so the premise is that anybody cares about what Liz Cheney says. Reality check, nobody does. If Liz Cheney releases a press release in the middle of the forest, did anybody hear it? Like, nobody cares about Liz Cheney. That's the reality. So I love her trolling, because it's poking fun at the reality, which is nobody gives a crap about what Liz Cheney thinks about anything. And if anything, she's probably helping Kari Lake, because a guy like me is going to go, wait, Liz Cheney doesn't like Kari Lake? Maybe I need to start paying attention to Kari Lake. So
yeah, like I refer to Liz Cheney as like a pariah in the Republican Party, because I'm sure pretty much people watching this probably know, but it's like, she got ousted from her role as House Republican Conference Chair, and then Trump backed Harriet Hage. I don't know how you say Hageman, whatever her name is. So she lost her primary, so she's on the way out the door right now. So
she's gone. Yeah, she's completely irrelevant. I mean, she might as well be a Democrat. But I mean, I guess.
She endorsed Elissa Slotkin, who's a Democratic representative. She actually endorsed her this week, and she is going to be appearing with her at an event too soon, I think. So there you go.
I mean, she might as well just full-fledged switch parties then. Maybe she has. I don't know. But I mean, yeah, it's like it
depends on how useful she feels she could be. It's like I think it's losing its usefulness being a Republican that sides with the Democrats, so that they get some sort of what do you call it? I'm spacing on the credibility. It's like, oh, because I'm a Republican and I disagree with Republicans and I side with the Democrats, that gives the Democrats platform or whatever they're going for some credibility. And I think if she can be useful in that way, then she'll stay a Republican.
Right.
And if it's not useful anymore, and then she'll switch. But the Liz Cheneys, I mean, those types of people are just wicked. The Mike Pence and the George W. Bushes, I see as, I'm frustrated with them in a different way. I think they're just like, get as much as you can get done without rocking the boat. And they get nothing done. It's like, you're in, a raging river paddling upstream. You're getting nothing done.
They don't recognize the times we're in. That's how
Exactly.
I feel. It's like, they are kind of, maybe let's give the best spin on it, which would be that they're just ignorant, that we still live in a political world where the two sides can come together and talk it through and get like a little bit from here and a little bit from there, and come up with like a middle ground that works for everyone. It's like, that's not happening anymore. Like, are you paying attention? Like, one's like wants us to be a communist dictatorship, and the other is for like the original founding principles of free speech and limited government. So there's increasingly little middle ground. We just need to win. We just need to, like, have enough political power to actually get things done. This whole, like, we're all just going to compromise and kumbaya to a solution, that doesn't seem to be the times that we're living in. I would love for that to be the times we're living in, but it doesn't seem like we are.
Plus, I think they bought into a subtle mistrust of the American people, and therefore the democratic republic the way we do things. I think they bought into some of the elitism. It's like, pat us on the head. We don't need to know the details. Here's what we're doing, blah, blah, blah. And I think, the stuff that we didn't know under George W. Bush, that we just, okay, like we only have the information you give us, and that's how we have to make decisions as voters. And so I think a Mike Pence, when it came down to Well, did the legislators, were these votes counted appropriately or not? And he had that option. I think he just listened to people that said the people will go crazy and America will implode if you
just don't rock the boat. Yeah.
America couldn't handle this. And, I think they're wrong, but it could be a self-fulfilling prophecy if our culture digresses to the point where we can't be trusted. So I think it's twofold. They're destroying our culture, and that's where the transgenderism thing comes in, where they create it seems like the leftists create the problem so that they can be the solution to the problem, to create a bigger problem, to be the solution to that problem. And it just gets bigger and bigger. And so they just keep creating bigger problems and get bigger solutions until.
Don't ever solve anything, though. God forbid we ever solve a problem.
No, that's not. That would be the point, because that wouldn't help them gain power.
Right.
So.
Well, and the sad thing is, like, even if there was a red wave, so-called, in the November elections, a lot of Republicans are, I would say, insufficiently conservative, in the sense that I don't think they're like as conservative as I would be if I was in Congress. And so we need not just a red wave in order to kind of like, shift things in the right direction. We need a red wave of people that are actually conservative, like, diehard, dyed-in-the-wool conservatives, like real conservatives. Like, we need a bunch of Thomas Massey is, for instance, is probably my favorite member of Congress. Him and Rand Paul, I really like. They're both from Kentucky, but yeah. I don't live there. But anyway, I like both of them. If we could have a lot more of them, I think we could actually make some, real progress. But when we have a bunch of kind of more moderate Republicans, a few conservative Republicans, it's just not. It's not really. Nothing's going to change for the most part, probably. So.
And of course, totally agree with you.
Yeah, I was going to say, obviously, politics will never save people. I mean, you guys are a Christian band, so I mean, obviously, it's like the underlying problem is people need to get saved, right? But also, just from a political standpoint, it would be useful if there was more really conservative people in there. But yeah.
Well, our revolution, American Revolution, was a Protestant revolution. America was founded based on religious freedom. And I think that's where the church should stand up and say, no, I think we need this and this and this. I think it helps people. I mean, I see, pastors addressing the trans issue in a good way biblically, as far as like sin. It's like, this is what God says. This is against God's word. You need to repent. But politically, it's a little bit different. I think the church needs to address it in a way that is looking for the downtrodden and protecting the innocent and the weak and the vulnerable. I think that would be appropriate for the church to say something, to stand up and say something. And everything's going to feel political. I don't want the church to be too political. You don't want to get distracted from the gospels and be the light. But at the same time, there's a lot in the Bible that says to care for the weak. Yeah. And children and are being confused, and they're very vulnerable, and they're being butchered. And we need to say something. The church needs to stand up and say, this is wrong. So they're addressing the sin issues of a trans person, and they're saying to, people like us, it's just like, we can't treat their sin different than ours. And I think that's being said, and it's being said well. But when it comes to addressing the leaders that are pushing for this stuff, we need some John the Baptist to stand up to Herods, to all these Herods, and be like, you're wrong. You're wrong. And you're going to be judged by God for it. And because they are going after innocent children and butchering them. And it is in way more than just the transgender thing. I mean, the border stuff, women and children are just being
treated like
they're dying in horrible situations. It's the sex slavery, the fentanyl issue. in an effort to give power, however they think they're going to get it through these means, they are throwing, women and children in particular under the bus. And it's devastating. And we need to say something about it. We need to say something about that. That's not quite, I don't quite see that from the church right now.
And Christians need to wade into it, even though it is challenging and difficult, and you don't want to put your hope in politics. And we don't, we know that there's no perfect system, and that, like you were saying, if the Republicans somehow magically became the dominant party, it wouldn't take long for corruption to sink in. In fact, it's probably already deeply there. So we don't put any faith in that. But it doesn't mean we don't engage. We have to engage. I mean, these are, the Christian message, we must always remember, is the hope of the world. The gospel is the hope of the world, that every human being is created with dignity, value, and worth in the image of God, and that Jesus has come to redeem what has been made so rampantly wrong by sin. He's come to fix that. And that means that somebody who's being preached to, that the solution for their life, problem of, I think I'm a man or I think I'm a woman when I'm the opposite, the answer is the gospel. The answer is the truth of who you are as a person and your value intrinsically as God has given it to you. The message of the gospel is power. It's incredibly powerful. And sometimes I think that means we wade into political things that maybe feel very dangerous.
Just saying the truth.
And just
stand up and say it.
Being willing to say the truth.
Don't fall for the name calling.
And to denounce
like,
and to
Christian
denounce it where you see it.
Like, I don't know what Christian nationalist is. There's like already several definitions now out there. Like, who cares? Who cares? Just say the truth. And don't worry about all the names and trying to, nerd out on trying to prove that you're not a Christian nationalist, or just
kind of goes back to accepting the premise. Like, I don't even accept the premise of whatever it is that you're trying to define. Here's what I am, though.
They're just going to make you define something else after that. It's like, are you Christian nationalist? Like, what do you mean by that? It's just like, now we're just talking about defining Christian nationalists, and we didn't even get to talk about the fact that they're, cutting children up. It's like, oh, now we just talked about Christian nationalism, and that just never got talked about. Great job. Just say it.
All right. Well, I think I'll leave it off there. Just speak the truth. That's the ending message from you guys. It's a good one. So before we go, though, let's advertise your stuff again. Where do you want people to go to follow you? And also just let me know where you want me to put the links in the video. I'll put some links at the bottom and stuff, but just remind everybody again where they can go follow you.
Yeah, probably Facebook, Instagram, Spotify. That's probably where our largest presence is. So if you hit us up on Facebook, that's where we post a lot of our news. So like, what's happening next and what projects and albums we're going to be working for. Like us on Facebook, and we post there fairly regularly. And then as far as our music, it's probably Spotify, but you can find us anywhere: Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music. We're on all those platforms. So whatever you use, just look up West Coast Revival and you should be able to find us.
And actually, what would be great is if there's any songwriters out there, or just email us at westcoastrevival@gmail.com.
Yeah.
And we check that email all the time. So that would be a great way to just get to us and contact us, send us songwriting stuff. I mean, we've been songwriters forever. We love the craft of songwriting. And so that's something we're passionate about. And that songwriting community is something that we're definitely working towards. So would love to connect with any songwriters out there that would like to show us their song or just connect. So West Coast Revival.
All right, I'll throw that in the description too. And also, just an ad for myself, if anybody wants to go listen to my music, also you can look me up, Alex Nitzberg, on Spotify. So there you go. And so thank you guys. I really appreciate you coming on.
Great talking with you, Alex.
Thank you.